Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
All right. Yo, what to do, everybody? It's your boy, John Altidor with Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Back at you with another one with my boys, Vlad. I don't know where Barry is at right now, but maybe he'll join us. But right now, we got a very special guest, national insider from the NFL Network. Welcome to the podcast, Ian Rapoport. How you doing, brother?
What's going on? How you guys doing? Good to be with you.
We're doing really well. You know, it's not every day we get people like you on this podcast. So we're really honored to have you on, man. You know, we've been watching you for a long time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And I think, our first question, before we get into everything that's going on today, man, how do you do it, man? Like you must be crazy busy at all times. How many phones you got?
I got one phone. I am not a believer in multiple phones. So I got one phone. I text on my computer, and I can put, if I need to, I can put my AirPods in, or I can just put someone on speaker and send a tweet while I'm talking to them. But like, I only have two ears. I have one mouth. I only have like two pockets. So more than one phone just seems ridiculous. Like I got one, and it seems to be totally fine for me. So I'll just stick with that.
That's awesome, man. Well, you're killing it out there, man. And I was paying attention today. Some surprising cuts, maybe not so surprising, based on what happened during the game. Melvin Gordon got released today. Yeah. What was that all about? Like, was it strictly the fumble, or was things going down, prior to that?
I think it was sort of a long time coming. So for Melvin Gordon, I think, the fumbles early, 2-in-1 game, I mean, that kind of put him on a little thin ice. And the problem with running backs in the NFL is if you're not doing it, they can find someone who can do it, but probably just as well or almost as well for a little bit cheaper. And, he cost some money. I think he tried to take accountability for his fumbles. Also said on Sunday that it wasn't the end of the world. But, if a guy fumbles 5 times in a season, like that's a lot. And so much of this is how much can you trust guys? And I think trust was, certainly an issue there. I think it was probably a long time coming. And I think a fresh start was probably not the worst thing for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I think Melvin Gordon has had his issues this year. But I think the Broncos as a whole has been having some issues. Because I'm hearing that Nathaniel Hackett is naming a new offensive play caller now.
Yeah, that happened before last week. Clint Kubiak was the guy, and he should be a familiar name. He was the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings last year. Really productive offense, was not able to be an OC this year, but as a quarterback's coach. It ended up they scored 10 points. So I think it was a good idea, good effort, scored 10 points. And that's frustrating. And, I think for the Broncos, it's sort of like, what else can they do? I mean, they've done everything. They hired a game management coach. Russell Wilson's gotten a couple different, has had his shoulder looked at. He had a procedure. They changed offensive coordinators, or they changed play callers, excuse me. It's been a lot of different things. Change the way practice is structured. At some point you wonder, like, is it actually going to work? And I have some wonders about that as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yesterday, the Patriots played, the Jets, and we're Massachusetts guys, so we're based out of Boston.
Yep.
And, I don't think we've seen a game like that in a long time here in New England, with everything that unfolded. And Zach Wilson's comment at the end, I just saw that it came out that, they're not ruling out starting another QB.
Yeah.
Do you foresee something like that happening?
I mean, if a coach is going to publicly broach that as a possibility, then I would say, yeah, it's possible. I mean, I would say for Zach Wilson, it has not been good. And, the Jets have a problem because they have a good roster and they got a lot of wins and they are a team that's in playoff contention. And if one person is just not able to be on the field, then no matter where he's drafted, at some point you owe it to the rest of the guys in the locker room to make the best decisions possible. And I think, that's where the Jets are. I think it is, certainly something they're going to consider. They're not going to make a rash decision. They're going to consider, they're going to have meetings. They're going to look at everything. But I would say it's certainly something that would be possible moving forward. Could they bench their first round draft pick? Certainly possible.
Ian, thank you again for coming on. My first
Absolutely.
question is, do you ever get any sleep? Do you ever get a full night of sleep?
Full night of sleep is sort of different. I mean, I'll usually get, 5 or 6 hours. Rarely do I just say, you know what, I'm just going to sleep and put my phone away and just not worry about anything. It happens, but not very often. Usually I sleep with the phone next to me or under my pillow. I get 5 or 6 hours. I exercise to make sure that my energy is up because that helps a lot. But it's a little stressful, but it's also a fun job. I mean, I could have a real job. That would be worse.
I mean, your job sounds really fun, but I just to have to be on all the time.
It's great, but don't worry, it is a little bit stressful. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. My question was, with all the guests that we've had on, we've asked them all year, what their thought is on this Bill Belichick situation with Joe Judge and Matt Patricia. And if you look at the game yesterday, there was no offense. I mean, the Jets had no offense either, but Matt Patricia is just not an offensive coach, and he hasn't been great as this offensive coach / offensive line coach now. And I mean, what do you think about that? And are you hearing any changes coming in that front?
Well, I think it's fair to say the offensive coaches for the New England Patriots have really learned kind of on the fly. I mean, Matt Patricia came up, originally he was an offensive coach, moved to defense, became a defensive coordinator. Bill Belichick is believes very strongly in making sure that everyone cross-trains, does offense and defense, does everything. And I think Matt Patricia, this is a great example of a guy doing everything, being the play caller, coming from being defensive coach, and saying, you know what, you're going to run the offense now. And I think, Joe Judge was a special teams guy, and now is on offense, the quarterback's coach. They're sort of learning on the fly. It has looked better as of late. I know the Jets game wasn't great, but there are other games that are a little bit better. Mac Jones has been efficient. So, I would expect it to keep improving, but certainly it is unorthodox.
I mean, in my opinion, I feel as though Mac Jones has digressed this year and not regressed this year, I meant to say. And you're hoping that a quarterback as good as he was last year, at least for the first 8 games, to make some progress. And I mean, it's hard to say that this new offense that they're trying to install hurt his growth or stunt his growth at least.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. And it's one thing that really helps guys is continuity, is making sure they know, like, all right, this is gonna be the offense, it's gonna come in, it's not gonna change. I have a mastery of it, all of that. I don't think that's the case now. But I do have confidence that Bill Belichick is good enough, knows enough, teaches players well enough, identifies coaches well enough where I think it's going to work, but it has been a little bit of a learning curve. And I think that's why they've kind of gone back and forth this season because they've had to learn on the fly.
And my last question is there any chance Josh McDaniels comes back next year?
I don't believe there is a chance of that. I think he's staying with the Raiders. Now he'd probably help the Patriots, but I think he's staying with the Raiders. I don't think he's going anywhere. They're gonna have to make do with what they have.
Yeah. Thank you. Barry, you have some questions?
Yes,
thanks for joining us, Barry. Nice of you to drop in.
No problem, sir. Yeah, no, definitely.
Sorry to interrupt your busy schedule, my guy.
No, it's all good, man. Yeah, I was just on the way back from work and caught up in some traffic. So sorry for the lateness and the inconvenience, but Yeah, no, just wanted to ask you because I don't know, I haven't felt as bad about a win for the Patriots as I did like yesterday. Like I get they won the game and a win's a win, but just my goodness, like that offense is just a disaster, a nightmare. And I think a big part of it, at least, you have to, put on, this coaching staff on Matt Patricia or whoever's, calling the offense. So I just, what I'm saying, want to like ask you, like, what do they do, offensively to be able to really, right the ship and pick this up and actually score, more points because they really struggled to move the ball and struggled once they got into the red zone. Like it's just it's not sustainable to win games like they, did yesterday.
I think the Patriots are going to be okay. I would say, Mac Jones was efficient. It was, it really kind of fell into one of those really defensive struggles. And once it became clear that it was just going to be all about defense and possessing the ball and not turning it over, I think both teams kind of pulled back and didn't make a ton of mistakes and made sure that they didn't make mistakes. So that's kind of the game it was as it developed. And that's why the Patriots offense looked like that. You didn't see any deep shots. You can see them take any chances, all that. I think they have that in them. I think they will be okay. Main thing is they got the win. I mean, it has now gone from like, being something you say, like, is it a lost season in New England to where, they're in playoff contention and, certainly very much in the mix.
I hear definitely, get what you're saying, with that. And, they're certainly in the mix and in contention. But now as we get to the, toughest part of the schedule, when we all looked at this schedule, we knew this was going to be, the gauntlet to say the least. And I'm just, looking at, some of these teams that they're going to play. And I'm like, how are they going to win some of these games if, they can't score points and do more offensively? Particularly, with, the Vikings and the Bills coming up with, in consecutive weeks. So, do you really see this team, making the playoffs and actually like being even able to win a game and make the playoffs? So they're just gonna get there and get their butts whooped like they did last year
Hey man,
against.
I would never bet against the Patriots. I mean, that's one great thing about having Bill Belichick is you got a chance every year, and they don't stop the standings for the playoffs in September. They don't stop them in October. The Patriots are always the team that gets better every year. Their depth is better. They're coached well. The planning is better. I mean, I would say they're a team that I would certainly not quit on, because I do think when it comes down to it, when it counts, when it matters, they'll be right there.
Yeah, I know we don't have you for too much longer. We have maybe a couple minutes left. The Vikings played the Cowboys last night, lost 40-3, and like Barry was saying, they're coming up for the Patriots right now. What was the issue with the Vikings last night? Because I really don't remember their offensive line being that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Cowboys are good. I mean, Cowboys defense is good. They get after the passer. They make you really uncomfortable. And, there's been a lot of reasons people like me are very bullish on the Cowboys because they are really talented on defense. And when you're that talented on defense, you can sort of withstand Dak kind of doing this a little bit up and down, up and down. But the weapons they have on offense now, if Zeke and Tony Pollard are on the lineup at the same time, they can do some damage. Really impressive by the Cowboys. I think for the Vikings, they've been one of the more fun teams in the NFL. It's okay to have a bad day, and I think they did have a bad day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think my last question is, we started this podcast a couple of years ago, and it's amazing we have you on here right now. And I think the goal is that, try to make it, in some of these, bigger platforms like you are. What are some advice you have people, for people like us?
I don't know if I have any good podcast advice. I would just say the most important thing in all jobs, but we'll talk about the one I have, is you better like it. It's work. It's a lot. It's a lot of hours. It's stressful. I think a lot of people want to quote unquote be in sports. But if you want to, watch games, then buy a ticket. Being in sports is not that. It's covering the game. It's covering the business. It's covering the personalities in the news. Make sure you like the job before you get into it, because you're going to be doing a lot of it. I mean, that would probably be the best advice I could give. Not really helpful for your podcast, but just in general, as far as being in sports, make sure you like all of it, not just be someone who wants to watch games.
I think that's definitely fair, man. Because it seems like you got a lot on your plate. You're tweeting every 2 minutes, man, and it's amazing to see.
It's a
And
lot.
we appreciate the work you do. Again, thank you so much for coming on Pro Fan Sports Podcast. We really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully maybe we'll have you back again here in the future.
I would love to. Thanks for having me, guys, and certainly take care and good luck in the future.
All right. Thank you very much,
Ian.
Ian.
Have a good night.
You too.
Yes, sir. And that was Ian. Apologies. I'm not usually in the area I am right now, but thanks to Boston traffic, we had to do what we had to do. We do here at Pro Fan Sports Podcast. We're going to get our work done regardless of what we're facing. So, thank you for tuning in and listening to the pod. Make sure you guys are following Ian. I believe it's at the Rapsheet on Twitter. Guy got like 303.7 million followers, so you can't miss him. One of the hardest working guys in show business. And make sure you guys are following us as well. It's at Pro Fan Sports on everything except for Instagram. That's at @profans_sports. Make sure you're liking, subscribing to the channel, sharing the content, comment. Again, we appreciate your support. And until next episode, man, we out.
Peace out.